All opinions are those of the participants making them and are not an endorsement of any position, program, religion, or political affiliation. DFG's Corner is for information, observation, and entertainment. I ask that you comment, like, share, and subscribe. Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is the DFG, the man with the golden voice, the lady's choice, and of course, smooth as a Rolls Royce. Coming to you live from the 571 where I'm having fun and I'm getting things done. Hopefully, you're having a wonderful day and I'm trying to get things going my way. As you can see, I got my Run DMC gear on. You know those cats from Hollis, Queens, even though I'm from a different part of Queens, I still rep NYC whenever I can. Got my little Kappa Diamond pageant pendant, looking good, looking good. I smell good. I feel good. I probably even taste good because I'm a cup of hot chocolate. And if you want some hot chocolate, you got to pay for it. Well, today's subject is going to be a sort of controversial one. So if you have weak stomachs, weak constitutions, I advise you to turn the channel, go somewhere else and hang out because you're not going to get soft talk here. And let me put this up for, give me a second and I will put it up for you. Today, I'm going to be talking about Black voting. My sisters and I we have a weekly conversation where we talk about a lot of things. Well, this week we talked about we talked about the Black vote and why wasn't why are people not looking at Joe Biden like they did in 2020 when the last guy in office was there? And you know, it was a pretty good conversation. They had friends in, they did everything they could, and thank you, Nikki, for coming on. As y'all come on, I'll holler at you. I ask that you like, share, comment, subscribe. It helps the algorithm. It makes it so that I can keep doing this and hopefully bring my message to a wider and larger audience. Right now, I'm at 5,290, almost at 5,300. My goal is to be at 10,000 by the end of June. You can help me out. You know, Poor Man's Podcast used to say the HBO hook a brother up. I'm not going to use that. I'm just going to say, be nice to a man, and he may be nice to you one day. So, um, as you can see, I had a little PowerPoint. Well, if you don't know how I do things, I laugh, I joke, but I do want people to get the serious. Sometimes I'll even ask for your participation because I want to make sure that asking we are all asking the same questions, and I'm sure we have the same things, and we want to be there to do our things and have the best experience that we can have. Um, I usually have my co-host. I don't know where she's at. She's my favorite girl, the Chocolate Pearl, and you know another sister of mine, the sweetest Snapple. We call her the Big Apple, and that's where she lives, and she does her thing up there in lovely New York. Um, I love my sisters, I love my brothers, but you know, we talk trash about each other. But that's if they didn't talk trash about me, I wouldn't think they was family. Tell me where you're from. If you put it in the box, I'll holler out. Cash apps. My Cash App information is in there, and also super chats. I take super chats. Hey, I get it any way I can. I'm trying to get it out the mud. Know what I mean? Well, as for me, I'm a 57-year-old Black male, born and raised in the United States. Born in the Bronx, New York. Lived about a year of my life in Manhattan. The rest of the time I spent in Queens, in the largest housing projects in the country, Queensbridge projects, where we all do our thing. Hey, Hey, Dr. Lark, see you already. We used to host a show together, tantalizing talk. That was Dr. Seductive, and she is here with me. And Miss Nikki is always there, and I appreciate that. They get that, but this is just me, the DFG. You know, the man with the golden voice, the lady's choice, and of course, smooth as a Rolls Royce. I'm up here in the 571 where I'm having fun and I'm getting things done. Well, anyway, back to what I was talking about. 1776. Now, what is so important about 1776? 1776 is when the colonies, the 13 colonies, decided that they wanted to break away from Great Britain. Many reasons: taxation without representation, all of that other good stuff, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. However, there was a big issue. There was an issue that Britain had abolished slavery in about 1831. The transatlantic slave trade was abolished to the states in 1809. So they still had the issue of a ton of indentured and chattel slaves, indentured servants and chattel slaves, and they were practicing that. So that was one of the reasons. Hey, Britain outlawed slavery, so we might as well break off of them. So they did that. And then they did the Declaration of Independence in 1776, 1783. Everything was fine. We had the United States, where they drafted the Constitution. The big thing was initially only landowners were able to vote, and you had to be white. Now, white at the time only meant British and maybe French and Dutch, but mainly British. If you were a former British citizen, you were allowed, and you had property, you owned land, you had a right to vote. Everybody else couldn't vote. And the system was supposed to be set up so that a few rich men could tell everybody else what to do. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? So even though in the Declaration the Declaration of Independence says all these things, all men were created equal. We all know we got 3/5 of that. So we were 3/5 of a person for census purposes from 1780, for lack of a better start, from 1800 to 1860, we were 3/5 of a person. What happened after the Civil War? Well, first with the 13th and 14th Amendments. 13th abolished chattel slavery. Slavery has not been abolished. I say again, slavery has not been abolished. Slavery is on, you can be enslaved by the state for committing a crime. I'll talk about that a little later. Well, in 1870, the 15th Amendment was the 15th Amendment. Good evening, Queen Earth Asia. Where you from? Where you calling? Where you hitting us from? The 15th Amendment of the Constitution allowed suffrage for Black men, and they got rid of the property requirement. So you had more universal voting. That opened it up, but freedmen and formerly enslaved were now able to vote for the first time. Now, notice one group I left out. You left to hold out women. Women were not able to vote until the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920. And the way the suffrage movement began with Susan B. Anthony and et al., it was only meant for palm-colored women. They didn't want colored women in the movement. But in 1913, there was a brand new sorority that broke off from another sorority in Washington, D.C., and they, within not even 2 months after they had formed, were marching in that parade against the wishes of the palm-colored women. They said, yeah, we want women to get rights, but we don't consider y'all women. But they stood up, stood strong, and stood out. They showed out. And that's, so we always wanted to vote. we always wanted to be a part of the American experiment. And there were a lot of obstacles placed in our way. I'm gonna go to this next one, and if y'all can see on the screen, I put a Black voting timeline talking about from the beginning till now. As you can see, I already talked about 1776. Then we skipped to 1870. We also in 1877, Louisiana was the first state to institute two things: poll taxes and poll tax literacy tax, and the grandfather clause. Everybody heard of? I'm sure everybody heard something's been grandfathered. Well, that was used to disenfranchise formerly enslaved Black people by saying, hey, if your grandfather couldn't vote, you can't vote. Now, white people had the ability to vote even though they couldn't vote because they didn't have land. So they were free. Their grandfathers were free, so they let them in. And in some cases, they didn't even let them vote because they had literacy tests because they're illiterate. But if I give you a test and I'm college educated and I write a test that's arbitrarily graded, you get the picture. In 1964, poll taxes were outlawed. Now, I'm sure there's nobody in here that was probably born in 1964, but I'm pretty close. So that's close. That's I can say that's in my lifetime. So poll taxes was not eliminated to 60 years ago. You know, people still that were still alive in 64. You knew some people that could still vote in 1964. So yeah, that's not too long ago. The Voting Rights Act, or the VRA, was passed in 1965 by Lyndon Johnson. That was after a lot of protests, Bloody Sunday. Television had a great part in seeing the injustice, you know, when it was suppressed in the press, you know, it wasn't people didn't think about it. But when it was brought into your living room, guess what? Everybody saw it. You know, they were like them coloreds was causing too much trouble. But when they saw the peaceful demonstrations and how if they were violently crushed and they just wanted the right to vote and some equality, it spurred the president to have to do something. Switching. So for almost 50 years, voting was pretty, you know, voting was there. We did our thing. We had our way. Now it goes to 2011, South Carolina. Hey, I'm in SC. You know, South Carolina, raise up. A lot of times they were figuring out, the powers that be was figuring out that what we want to do, the people won't do it. So let's write neutral laws, but we know how it'll disenfranchise one thing. And one of those was not photo ID, but certain photo IDs that were not, you know, they said, well, we want to make sure that you are who you say you are. And how do they do that? By allowing certain IDs, whether they're picture or not, even state issued, that were not allowed and that were mostly carried by Black folks. Now, in the South, up until probably the early 70s, a lot of people were delivered by midwives, and they kept their birthdays in their local Bibles or something like that. Very few people over the age of 70 have their birth certificates because a lot of those didn't get recorded, or they don't have the correct date, because that's, you know, our records weren't really important unless we were being incarcerated. Hey, say what you want, but I'm just kicking facts here. Facts and more facts. So how do we get around that? In 2013, a court case, Shelby County versus Holder, when Eric Holder was the attorney general. It went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court at the time overturned the Voting Rights Act, mainly that states didn't need monitoring to make sure they implement any changes. And that's when you started getting draconian laws to where they mainly affect us. I mean, they want to get rid of early voting and Sunday voting. You know why? Because that's when we do that. They want to get rid of using state issue ID for food stamps and TANF, or even if you got out of jail, you couldn't use a picture jail ID because it wasn't considered official. These laws were set up to ensure an outcome that may have been in doubt. And then you had, on top of that, you have issues where I'll say unequal application of the law. The law is the law. You break the law, you break the law. But going back, what's going on, Kev? My cousin Kevin is on. I'm glad he's on. Hey, welcome aboard. Welcome aboard. You have the issue where they had what was called black codes, because the people in the South they had all these free black people and they couldn't get them for free labor. And that's where the 13th Amendment comes in. So how can you get a ready-made labor force without having to pay them? You arrest them basically for being black. Loitering laws, private property trespassing laws. You couldn't hunt without a license. You couldn't fish without a license. You think that was made to protect the environment? No, it was not. Much as we want to say, hey, that's what it was. But these are the things that we look at and we cover, and that they don't, it kind of hurts when you go through it, because we're not seeing everything that we need to see. I'm gonna stop right here. I'm gonna put the Zoom link in the box to see if anybody wants to join me and we can talk about this. Hello, Kim. If you want to come on the Zoom link, only thing I ask is that you come up on camera and that I get to see you, and we can talk. We can talk like the adults we are, the smooth acting, beautiful people that we are. Now here's one thing that's coming up, and you'll see it in a few minutes. It's Democrats are losing ground with us. Now I know we're not a monolith. I personally am a registered Republican. I registered as a Republican way back in the Bush 1 days. I was a very conservative person and did conservative things. As I got older, I realized that it's not what it's cracked up to be. And I'm not telling you who to vote for, but we've been blindly voting Democrat for the last 60 years. We've been voting Democrat. That's okay, Kev. We've been voting Democrat for the last 60 years. Put in the box what your registered party of affiliation is, so I'm making sure I'm not cursing anybody out. However, the Democrat Party switched from being ultra conservative and anti-black to less conservative, while the Republican Party went from the party of Lincoln and freeing slaves, not for not because it was the right thing to do, but because he wanted to keep the union together and stuff like that. To big business, and you know, if you don't have money, they don't really care about you because you have a bunch of people voting against it, voting red for no other reason that just in order to just hurt black folks or people of color. I say black folks, but that's who we are. Don't forget to like. Don't forget the. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to comment. Tell all your friends. On the screen here, we have from even 20 years ago, 2004. Um, there were more people that were wanting to vote for Kerry than voting for the current guy in office now. Black people I'm talking about. That's saying a lot. The only thing that's keeping him from hitting rock bottom is the other guy is possibly worse. I'm not gonna say possibly, he is worse. And that's why I can in good conscience recommend any type of party, but I say vote your conscience. The big thing is that a lot of us we don't know what we want to vote for. We want, we want a lot of things, but we don't vocalize them for fear of rocking the boat. One of the issues that I've heard a lot about, but not from the mainstream, is reparations. Reparations for people that were for descendants of the formerly enslaved. They weren't slaves, they were enslaved. There's a difference. There's a difference. For those formerly enslaved, there's really not enough money in the world that can set things right. But compensation is the key to what we want for our people, and to make sure that our people can prosper, because there's been so much economic damage done against us. And notice the government can find money for reparations for everybody else, but when it comes to those descendants of the formerly enslaved, there's always an excuse. It's always an excuse. Like I said again, if you want to come on, the link is in the chat. I'll put it back in there again. And I know I'm on a little on a delay here, so, but I want y'all to know that I'm going to keep chugging and keep doing my thing. Just a show of hands, not a show of hands, but like I said, if you're a Republican, could you put a 1 in the box? If you're a Democrat, could you put 2 in the box? Let me check to see what we are doing. Okay. Let me go back to this. And here we go. The next slide. These are the issues according to the Pew Research Center, is what we say that we're concerned about. Healthcare and medicine. 2.5. What does 2.5 mean? But anyway, Black people, and it's true, we do care about healthcare, because the history of this country and healthcare and how we were treated and how we were treated is a history of distrust, a history of malfeasance, and a history of just straight just straight denial. The reason why healthcare was not in this country that's not universal is because they did not want the coloreds, meaning us, to get it. Simple as that. A lot of the things that were done with us in mind to not get. A lot of that's why slavery is not abolished, because they had to figure out a way to make money off of us, put us in prison, make us work. Do you know if there was a national strike of prisoners, it only have to last 3 days and our economy would come crashing down? I got you, Queen. I got you, Queen. Um, yeah, that's how much our corporations depend on slave labor. People processing your meat, if they're not from Central South America, they got on jumpsuits. The people doing all the dirty work that they don't want to pay for is done by prisoners. Prisoners get 40 cents a day, maybe, if that. And, you know, some people say, well, they're prisoners. They can do whatever they want. They can, I mean, they did the crime, they need to do the time. But you have to understand, and that goes into the second one, and I'm bringing it back. Um, crime. Crime is not inherent to Black folks. I say again, crime is not inherent to Black folks. Crime is not inherent to white folks. Crime is opportunity and lack of resources. If you starve everybody and then send somebody in with a bread truck and say, this is your bread truck and you don't, and nobody else can get it, it's yours, and you're the only one with bread and everybody else hungry, guess what? There's going to be crime. Needless to say, in the 60s, when the 50s and 60s, when interstates were running through formerly prosperous Black neighborhoods, couldn't burn them down anymore, couldn't blow them up. They said, go, couldn't blow them up, couldn't burn them down. So why not eminent domain and put factories over there and run a highway through it. That way folks can get to the suburbs that we couldn't buy in the 50s and 60s. That's interesting. In VA, their pay starts at 15 cents an hour. You work 12 hours a day, y'all do the math. That's, you know, it ain't a lot. It's like $1.80 a day. $1.80 a day. $1.98 actually. $1.95, because 15 times 15 squared is 225. I'm not a math savant, but I kind of know math. Everybody's scared of crime. I mean, crime sucks. If somebody comes and takes you, and chances are we've all been victim of a crime, whether it was a misdemeanor or some of us got convicted of or or committed them. Either way, a lot of times we are we are less likely to get a similar sentence if somebody of the palm persuasion. Hate to say that. If a Black person commits a murder, even if they didn't commit it, the 7 times more likely than a palm color person to get to be found guilty first, and then to be told that, hey, you going away for the rest of your life. That's another reason why our things are full, because they don't want crime to stop. Because if crime stops, they got to invent crime for you to do. Jaywalking, spitting on the sidewalk, littering, these type of things, criminalizing homelessness, these type of things keep the jails full. Whether the jails full goes back to the 13th Amendment. And that also, most of those things become felonies. And if you have a felony, very few states want to reinstate you to be able to vote. So yeah, it's a whole bunch of stuff. Economy and jobs. For the longest, when they had to pay us, we'd be the last hired and the first fired. Um, if you're in a job, if you're in a job, chances are, and you're black, chances are you are going to receive, you have almost a 2 times likely going to receive a lower evaluation than a similarly or less qualified palm colored person. Hate to say that, but that's how it is. You have to be 3 times better than your competitor to be able to do that, to be able to come forth and get to what you got. And if you get too good, guess what happens? If you get too good, they find a way to get rid of you. And education in schools. Now, y'all know that schools are funded by property taxes. Property taxes are funded by valuations of houses based off an assessor. How many people think their houses right now are assessed at what you think they're worth? Put a 1 in the box for yes if you're a homeowner, two if no. Don't see anything yet, but it'll come up. But for the bottom line is that our houses tend to be valued less than similarly houses owned by others, and we're more than likely to live in a neighborhood where property values are going down, vice going up. When property values go down, the school tax base goes down. School tax base go down. You have to make drastic cuts to your education. So you're not getting education and your schools are not being fixed. Well, the money's there, but they're trying to siphon it off for these private charter schools so that their buddies can get rich where they're not under where they're getting indoctrinated and not educated. Um, the next one I'm gonna talk about is information consumption. Do y'all know that we are the highest consumers of TV news? That's where we get most of our information from. Not reading, not the internet, well, social media, but a lot of us watch the news. And as you can see from the first one, 3 out of 4 of us will watch news on TV, and that's how we consume the news. About 6 out of 10 palm colored people, Asians about half, and Hispanic about 6 out of 10. So we are TV watchers, and that's there's nothing else I can say about that. We are definitely TV watchers. We watch more TV and we watch more entertainment than a bunch of folks. So I want y'all to know that sometimes it's okay to cut the TV off every once in a while, and let us know that, hey, be your best and read a book or something. Read a read a book or something. Get information from other sources. Surprisingly, as much as we're on social media, we don't trust what social media has to say. But I mean, some of us look at TikTok to get our news. Now, is that a trusted source? Not all the time, but you have to understand that most of the people on TikTok, like with the situation over in Israel, Gaza, um, what we're being told by the mainstream media is not what's happening on the ground. just like all those talking points about us being criminals and us doing all that, all us being proponents of crime and all that other good stuff. TMZ, yeah. Yeah, sometimes they get it right. Sometimes they do get it right. But for the most part, we don't look at it like that. We just look at TV and sort of kind of believe what's on TV. But that's because that's how we're controlled through TV. Um, Another thing is how we're covered in the news. Put a one in the box if you think that the news covers us unfairly, and then I'm going to ask somebody why. Why do you think that they're covered unfairly? So when it comes to news coverage, if there's a crime, and this is it's anecdotal. It is not. I don't have any stats on this, but how come whenever they say a crime and they don't put up a picture, 9 times out of 10 it's not a black person. If they don't put no picture up, guess what? 9 times out of 10 it ain't a black person. Now I mean, the more heinous the crime, the more our pictures are put up. So it associates us, people of higher melanin content, with crime, even though we're 12, 13% of the population. We're the face of criminal activity. We're the face of criminal activity, and we don't look at that. I mean, that's what they say. We're out there. We on welfare. We're on welfare. We always committing crimes. We're not taking care of our children. We're not doing. We're lazy, and we're useless and shiftless. If that was the case, we'd have been extinct a long time ago. That's straight facts. If you look at the lower left corner, you'll see that it's very important that all the sides of an issue gets covered. And what I mean by all the sides of an issue is usually you never hear the black person's side of the story. Well, a lot of times they ain't alive to tell it, but they always tell it from a narrative that the black person's always wrong, or the other person, even if the person commits the crime that's committed crime is not black, the victim is black. The victim is in the wrong. The victim should have did something. Always negative. A lot of times, a lot of people make statements and talking points, and they don't understand history, or they don't care to understand history. I don't know about you, but I get tired of explaining over and over and over again the context of history. And people be like, "Oh, y'all just whining. Y'all just not doing this." But you know how that goes. And how many of these people actually talk to people like they're human? They always say the suspect. They're always saying this and that. Um, they don't. They look at us as a monolith, even though we're not, and that kind of gets discouraging because we all get lumped in with the less than 3% of all black people are currently incarcerated. Yes, less than 3%. Roughly about 420,000 black people at this point, at this time, are incarcerated in jail, in prison. That includes the military, and that includes the entire country. So that should tell you something about how slanted coverage is. And you notice they never say palm on palm crime. I guess that's a threesome. That could be. And if you look at the pie chart, it aligns with it pretty much aligns with what we think. Our coverage is always often more negative. We get all the negative stories. On TV, on TV, we get, we're looked at, we're portrayed as criminals, gangsters, thugs, pimps, whores, the whole nine, that nobody wants an education. And we just be talking like this, boss. Eyes don't know nothing. Eyes don't know anything. Now, I mean, we can't articulate our sentences. We lack the articulation skills to be able to function in a society that's dominated by those who have money. And I always say, it's a funny thing though. I always say, when someone says I talk white, I say, you mean like Mama June? And I get crazy looks. Why Mama June? I said, Mama June white, ain't she? Yeah, yeah. And then that usually shuts them up because I said, don't come to a gunfight with a rubber band. You ain't gonna win. But you get tired of the news telling us what we are and controlling our image. It's up to each and every one of us to control our image. We got to talk to each other and not talk at each other. We got to talk to each other. Tell your kids to pull their darn pants up. Tell your sons that it's okay if you got long hair. That's your expression. But you got to understand that you're going to get looked at a certain way. I hate to say that, but that's what it is. Tell our daughters is that more is better, more clothing. Understand you might got a fine body and want to show it off, but you want to be respected for what's up here and not what's underneath your clothes. If I can't say anything else, I mean, we want to be known for more than our body parts. And as we go, as we look at these things and we try to cover those, we run afoul and our image is pretty much messed up. I hate to say that, but we're the only ones that can fix our image. We have to take control of our image. When we see crazy stuff, we got to say something. It's not, I mean, we're not all one, but we all get seen the same. You've heard the saying, all of us look alike. Y'all, hey, if y'all didn't, y'all heard it here first. Y'all definitely heard it here first. I'm gonna play a quick video. Give me a second. And give me a second.
Seem to me been preaching hate to meet hate.
I don't advocate any kind of hate.
But there's a lot of talk that sounds very much like it.
No, I think that the guilt complex of the American white man is so profound until when you begin to analyze the real condition of the black man in America, instead of the American white man eliminating the causes that create that condition, he tries to cover it up by accusing his accusers of teaching hate. But actually, they're just exposing him for being responsible for what exists.
I'll stop sharing. Now, as you can see, that was deep. That was if you didn't know, that was 𝐿_Malik_Shabazz, better known as Malcolm X. And he was, he was spitting pure D facts. Pure D facts. And I can't say it enough. Let me show you another one. Nah, not that one. That's funny. This one is from a TikToker named Levert the Bassman. Y'all need to check him out on TikTok. He is the truth.
Hey, good morning. While driving through Tennessee in 1960, a then Vice President Lyndon Baines said this to a young reporter named Bill Moyers. I'll tell you what's at the bottom of it. If you can convince the lowest white man that he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pockets. Hell, give him somebody to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you. Now here we are in 2024, and this mediocre white man is convinced that he's better than the most decorated Grammy Award-winning artist of all time, who happens to be a black woman. This mediocre white man goes on to tell the most decorated Grammy Award-winning artist of all time to stay out of country music, because when you touch country music, you're like a dog marking your territory by peeing on a tree, even though country music was created by black people. You see, white mediocrity is convinced that it's better than black excellence. And this mediocre white man has given the lowest whites an entire political party to look down upon. You Democrat! And now, they don't even realize that he's picking their pockets. Hell, they're emptying their pockets for him. Poor whites and other misguided people are literally emptying their pockets to help a multi-billionaire. Just because. This is the psychopathy of whiteness.
Yeah, that was deep. That was deep. Like I said, that's Levert the Bassman. If you want to check him out, he's a good watch on TikTok. They try to get rid of him because he be spitting more bars than a college Main Street. He's pretty sharp. He's pretty sharp with his stuff. Well, I'm going to say it like this. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for coming on and supporting me. I ask that you continue supporting me on my quest to get 10,000 viewers. But I'm going to cut this one a bit short. I was hoping that my chocolate pearl would come on, but hey, the show still got to go on. Join me next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Do your thing, and I'm going to close it out with my extra music. Just give me a second. And like I say, never make love by the garden gate. Though love is blind, the neighbors ain't. Peace out, y'all.
Thanks for watching. This is the man with the golden voice, the lady's choice, and of course, smooth as a Rolls Royce, saying, never make love by the garden gate. Though love is blind, the neighbors ain't.